Welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders Airsoft podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. A little while ago, someone asked a question in our Discord's Question of the Day channel that really, got me thinking and thought, wow, that would be great for a podcast episode. The question was asking for people to share their unpopular opinion, secrets, hot takes, confessions, that kind of stuff about Airsoft. And boy, did people deliver. There was a lot of different opinions put out there. Some really took it to heart and posted many different opinions. So what we thought we'd do today is just read a few of them and have a chat about, whether we agree, whether we disagree, if you're straight up out to lunch, or you deserve to be catapulted into the sun for your opinion.
My favorite.
It's one of those four. So
I love the sun catapult.
Yeah, really. So again, as always, when we do this kind of stuff, we're being serious, but it's also tongue in cheek, right? Don't get too upset if we disagree with you. I mean, it's all about having a bit of fun. So
all lifing is friendly and humorous.
Yeah. So the first hot take, unpopular opinion, confession: pyro isn't worth the cost.
I'm a bad person to ask in the sense that I haven't used any of what the user almost certainly meant. The cool burn smoke grenades. I agree. They're cool. I find it sort of thematic. They're fun for the vibe. But in terms of practical utility, I don't think they kick out enough smoke most of the time.
Yeah. And so this user in particular was talking about pyro frags and stuff. So the kind that we threw when we were in the States, and we do have access to them in Canada. And I actually think, as of recording this episode, there are fewer regulations in Canada on pyro than in the US currently. I think is
really
how it works out. Yeah, which is a little crazy. But the point is, when we were down in the States, we got a chance to throw some of the pyro. And then when we came back, we found out that it was also available in Canada. Here's the thing. In the US, right, most of those grenade throws were anywhere from $10 to $13 US. So you're looking at about, $16 to $20 a throw in Canada. But the reality is that even in Canada, you can't get them that cheap. So even if you were to get a pack, I think it works out to $25 a throw. And at that cost, that is really, truly quite expensive.
Yeah, that is prohibitive.
Yeah. So, I kind of agree with this, but I also kind of agree with it, even if you take the cost sort of out of the equation. They're fun to throw, don't get me wrong. Throwing a grenade, it's awesome. It was great. And it was fine. It was super fun the first time, and the second time, and the third time, and then the fourth time, and then the fifth time, and then at some point it just becomes run of the mill, right? It's no longer that same special that feeling in your gut of oh my God, I just did something awesome. And it's just it's perfunctory. You just, there's a building, there goes my grenade, it goes off, and that's the end of that. And at the price point, I think that is definitely not worth it, considering that you can get, for the price of 2 exploding tag-ins, you can buy a flamingo grenade. And that grenade will last you hundreds and hundreds of throws instead of just twice.
Yep.
So
that's I feel that's a pretty good cost benefit. At $25 for argument's sake, a throw, I'll buy them for a big operation game, but I'm not necessarily going to be buying many more than 3 or 4.
Yeah, and it's good for a chuckle, right? When we went to the States, John and I were we're throwing pyro. This is happening. Yeah, totally. It's going to be amazing, right? For sure. But then if you just, as you think about your normal standard kit, at some point there's stuff out there that we're talking about what's worth the cost, which is what they said. Pyro isn't worth the cost. And I think there's, especially for Airsoft, there are so many good, available options. Like, and we talked about the flamingos, excuse me, but there's other, BB sling and grenades that are, yeah, they're more expensive per unit, but for the cost of 4 frags, you can buy like an ASG, Storm or Apocalypse or whatever, and throw that way more than 4 times. I mean, I
Yeah.
certainly hope so. I haven't used one myself, but I assume they last more than 4 throws,
I
right?
feel like the ones that explode are going to be an appeal for like the really simulationist people, or at least I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing like super duper milsim, maybe it's value added.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're going to a Milsim McMilsim West and people are like, there's a guy who has a blank fire gun or whatever, like that's, yeah, it's a different conversation. But that, it's the same reason that when we went to the States to play that game, cost was not an object. I didn't care how much the pyro was. I was there to throw as much pyro as I realistically could get my hands on, and
Yeah.
I did, right?
Concern should be arm fatigue, not pyro.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
but in your standard, like, Matt is doing Get Smoked in April, they're going to be throwing lots of flamingo grenades there, and that is way more cost effective overall. And I mean, you still get a pop from them, you still get a
yeah,
bang
I
from
mean,
them.
I
They're
guess in
great,
terms of the
right?
simulationist thing, there in some ways, like they're probably louder, at least the loudest one. Like,
I don't know. I didn't get. I mean, I wore hearing protection. You could ask the guy I rocked though. I threw that in a very small room, and there was a guy in there, and it landed at his feet. I didn't know how short the room was. As a side note, I threw that in there, landed at his feet, and I heard, "Oh shit!" and it just went off at his feet. And yeah, I think he was a little like rattled. John actually talked to John. He grenaded himself, and he wasn't wearing hearing protection, so you can ask him how loud they
all
were
right,
too.
so we
So
need to get. What you're telling me is we need to get John to grenade himself with the flamingo without hearing
and see how
protection as
bad it
well,
is.
and
Yeah,
see which of them is
exactly.
worse.
Yeah. All right. Here's a second
Somewhere John
unpopular
senses a
slash
disturbance in the force.
yeah. Here's our second unpopular opinion slash hot take. Airsoft is a game where guns are toys, violence is fun, and consequences aren't real. And maybe military recruiting doesn't belong around it.
I mean, sure. Um, in that sense, like, I guess the military folks who are like, this is sort of like a fun version of job stuff are probably better people to talk to, you know. And those are a recurring thing both in our community and in the community at large. Like, it's a game, sure. But like, do you also not feel that, other like that, not that airsoft is a direct analog here or anything, but like that martial arts would also be a place that like forces folks shouldn't go hang out or talk about things. um in the grand scheme of things, like I don't think anyone from the forces, like I can only speak for the Canadian forces, right? I have a fair amount of
Sure.
interaction with their recruiting folks because they come to the school like 4 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And every other school. They're like, we are so very long past the trying to con you into it thing. Like people will joke about, oh, like, yeah, they promised I'd be able to buy a sports car. They're not if I join the infantry, they're not lying. Might take you a little while. Or
Yeah.
the bank will, buy you a sports car and you can pay them for it in installments. But yeah, like I don't know. I don't think that the forces folks who like are interacting with us are there going, oh yeah, like we're here to recruit people because they've done this and we're going to sucker them into it, which is really what I feel like this hot take implies.
Yeah, I don't know. I took it more to be like, we shouldn't be encouraging people to view airsoft as some sort of like military analog training kind of situation, and by inviting military recruiting to events, it sort of makes it seem like, well, you did this and this other thing is exactly related to it, or somehow connected. I can certainly see the connection,
I,
although again, I can't speak for any other military than the Canadian military who came
I,
to our events and stuff. And for, I haven't done my career in the military, but if if you want to join the military and do a career, like you can do an entire career that is not necessarily based around the kinds of things that you do in airsoft, right? Like I've mentioned before, I believe my brother-in-law is an electrical mechanical engineer. He works on, trucks and stuff like that, and he, teaches. We have Cal, who's an infantier for sure, but like there's so many other trades in the forces. It's not just about being an infantryman. It's about, do you want to be a lawyer? Do you want to be a doctor, a dentist, a helicopter pilot? Like there's all these kinds of things. And I don't necessarily, and so I think for me, the way I look at it is there's a lot of people who would never ever be interested in joining the military out in the world. And so trying to recruit from that pool, from a recruiting standpoint, is going to be fighting an uphill battle. Whereas for airsoft, the vast majority of airsofters are at least neutral towards the idea of the military, and probably even more in the camp of I'm willing to hear you out kind of situation, right? So in that sense, I think it's a pretty ideal place for recruiters to want to be, right?
And
And
like I
the
feel like
people are receptive.
and I feel like having, you know, like I'm not necessarily feeling that like recruiters should come to every airsoft game
No,
because I don't
yeah, I
think that's a
agree.
good use of their time. But like, addressing the sort of idea that um, you know, that them not being involved will like help prevent people from thinking about this as a military adjacent thing. People already do that.
Yeah,
Both like random people who see photos of me on Facebook in my gear definitely are like, you know,
yeah,
in specifically that way. Um, in fairness, most of the people who are my Facebook friends know that I'm a crazy person, so like whatevs. But um, and I'll also, to be honest, I think that this ship has sailed and sunk. I think there are so many people on YouTube and every other social media channel who are talking about airsoft who will go, yeah, it's super like really realistic stuff. That I don't feel like having for Canadian Forces recruiters or whatever at events anyway is going to really influence that one way or another.
yeah. I definitely would agree.
Um,
Yeah,
and don't get me
your
wrong,
mileage
like
may vary. If you're in the States, that's a different conversation. Perhaps I'm not one to judge because I don't know any of them.
yeah, I mean, like
But yeah,
um, I also feel like people, no one, no one is going to come and kidnap you for this, right?
hmm
Um, and like, I think the closest analogous thing is I've definitely encountered people who are like, oh, I'm playing airsoft and I'm gonna join the forces, who didn't,
yeah,
weren't, um, but like at the same time, that may just be a thing they thought they were going to do at that point in their life and carry on. Like, especially lots of those people have been, 14, 15, 16, and 14, 15, 16, and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with myself as a human being pretty much go together.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, and I think that just it's everybody. I was going to join the forces too, right? When I was coming out of university, I was going to go direct entry and go into the infantry as a second lieutenant and stuff, and I never did that. You know why? Because it was a stupid idea for me at that time, right? When I was thinking about that, like I was in one place, and then by the time it comes time to sort of pull the trigger, pardon the pun, but comes time to sign your name on your line. You're like, actually, I've got other stuff I want to do. Priorities have shifted. Totally normal, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say for you that you were fairly idealistic about it at the time. I think,
Oh yeah, 100%.
like, and not in the sense of like joining the military means you're idealistic, in the sense of not just for the viewer, not being fully aware of the ups and downs of the gig.
Yeah. And I think, just as a last point on this, and as someone who is not in the military, but has family members who have done their whole career in the military and friends who are as well, and I have a bit more of a peek, behind the curtain or see how the sausage is made, however the expression you want to use here. Careers in the military can be absolutely great.
Oh
Right, there's
man,
so many different things that you can do. Like it's not there aren't parts of it that aren't going to suck. Every job sucks, right? Every job has parts that you like more and parts that you like less. But if I think about my family members and stuff, and I think about the bad stories that they've told me, that still doesn't mean that they would actually take it back and do something else if they had their time.
yeah, totally.
So
Like,
yeah,
yeah, I don't think either of us is meaning to disparage the profession or
no, not at
anything,
all.
like, at all. Um, and yeah, no, I mean, I think like I'm comfortable if people coming to talk to us from the Canadian Forces were, gonna offer people false incentives, right? um, then I would probably feel a bit differently.
Yeah.
But like, again, they're professionals. They're not going to do that again, other than being like, yeah, you can buy a sports car, and then you join and are like, I mean, I can, but I probably shouldn't financially.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Here's the next one. You need to work out to be good at airsoft. If it really is a sport like we say it is, you need to train and exercise for it just like football. And here they mean American football, not global football, but it still applies. Or baseball or whatever. Sure, you can be good, just like you can be good at global football the first time, but you'll never be as good as you can be until you put in the time on the side.
I mean, so like, as the not fit person in the group chat, um, you know, yeah, like I when I was, rolling out of bed every morning and doing 100 push-ups and running 25K a week, I was a better airsofter than I am right now. Like, a more effective member of our team. Um, Full stop. I moved quicker. I had an easier time doing stuff. It was easier to hold my gun up on target for an hour. Like, not that that's hugely critical to the way we play a
Yeah.
lot of the time, but like, yeah, it was, um, should I get back to doing that? Yeah, not because of airsoft.
Yeah,
right.
I
Like,
suppose.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because of airsoft, no.
Get fit, and then the airsoft will follow, right? Like,
Yeah. Like, I
yeah.
think there's a lot of value to fitness. And like, yeah, if you're gonna look at this and go, yeah, it's a sport. Okay, like, legit. Because I think it is a sport. I think it's also a hobby and a costume contest and a few other things, all on the same day most of the time. But like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I think it's also the way that I took this is it's not just about the physical aspect of it, like your physical fitness, which of course is important because whether you call it a hobby or a sport doesn't matter. It has a physical component, right? But there's
Yeah.
also the technical component, just like real sport. Just like, I mean, I don't need to say it's not a real sport, but just like other sports, like global football, like American football, like there are skills and personal skills that you need to develop. And on the Discord, I actually replied to this person and I said, you can't be the guy with the $400 optic and a 10-cent ready up,
Yeah.
right? Like the amount of time that you spend practicing some of your basic skills, your fundamental skills, will dramatically increase your skill level at the sport of airsoft overall. So yeah, absolutely. Being able to run and being able to do push-ups or have strength in your legs and all this kind of stuff is great. But so equally is the ability to manipulate your replica, to be able to snap shoot, right? To be able to acquire a sight picture, pull the trigger faster than the other guy, reload, all of those fundamental skills. And yes, you absolutely can acquire them on the airsoft field, but guess what? You acquire them much faster if you're doing them 3 to 4 times a week in your, in your bedroom, in your garage or whatever, and then you're rolling up to the game and using the skills that you've been practicing. It's just like any other skill, right?
And like, I would add to that, because I think it's a thing we've tested and done and demonstrated. Yeah. Doing a team practice once a month with the guys is like, in a genuine, like, go somewhere and actually do some just, movement practice, the shooting practice is personal skills, whatever. But like, coordination practice is actually really like a surprisingly small amount of that provides a surprisingly large amount of advantage if that group of people is together working together on the field.
Absolutely. No question.
So yeah, like, in that regard and in every other one, yeah, it makes sense to me. Like, I don't know. I'm inclined to read the tone of the comment as being a little bit like sports. Like, it's the point of view of someone who's into sports, and who's played team sports competitively, I would guess, like, not necessarily at any given level. But I think the point of view, I think the argument's right in a lot of ways. I think the notion of like, oh, you can't enjoy airsoft unless you do this is a sort of, I'm not saying it's in the statement, but like,
I get you.
I feel like there are parallel statements where people would be like, oh, like, if you're not doing, this many push-ups, you shouldn't play airsoft. As long as we're not gatekeeping, yeah, totally, right? Like, there is no argument that, you know, if I go run more than I am doing right now, which is very little, none, then
Setting the bar real low.
yeah, it's easy. Then yeah, it will improve my airsoft game.
I think too, like a part of this component is, and I don't necessarily think, and I definitely know that the person did not intend it to be like, you can't have fun if you don't, like, that's not it. But I do think
Yeah, I mean, I
that
didn't
as I was thinking about this, like, you also see sort of like a knock-on effect with that with a lot of airsofter in attempting to, upgrade their gear, right? Like upgrade their replica for like single digit percentage point improvements, but they're not willing to, like go for a run, go for a walk, even to, get a little bit stronger, a little bit fitter, which on the balance of things, if they're trying to improve their airsoft sort of like efficiency and like performance and stuff, the new hop up rubber that you're going to put in your gun that bumps its its performance by like 2%, gives you an extra 3 feet of effective range, compared to your ability to, be able to run for 20 minutes and not be winded. Like, one of those things is going to be much, much more beneficial for you than the other from a percentage point of view. But we're not willing to do that because this other thing is objectively a lot easier. You could just throw money at the problem, essentially, right?
Yeah,
But
and like, I
if
mean,
it depends on your commitment, I guess, to how much improvement you're looking to get
you
at the end of the day, right?
totally. I mean, like, and I'm gonna preface this by saying that I know this is absolutely a bullshit like excuse, but also life is super busy. Finding time for stuff is hard.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily know that I agree with that in a lot of cases, just because I think about the average person and the amount of time that we spend, and I say we because that includes me, just scrolling on my phone at any point in the day, right? If that's more than, well, I would say, I don't know what the actual average is. I would say it's more than 20 minutes,
I know the
right?
average. I know the average amongst because I've been polling them. The average amongst high school students is terrifying. But like,
Right? So like I think for most people, and I know like lots of people have kids and they have a lot of stuff going on, if you can find 20 minutes 3 times in a week, I
yep.
don't think that's asking for too much. But for someone who is doing like no physical activity or no practice for airsoft or some combination thereof, even that would be significantly more if you think about it, right? Like if you're now practicing and getting ready for airsoft 1 hour total combined per week, where previously you were doing 0, and your average amount of hours playing airsoft is, well, if you look at us, let's say it's an hour and a half per week because we play like every 2 weeks for 3 hours, let's call it.
Yep.
Well, I mean, shit, you're almost at 50%
Yep.
of
Totally.
your airsofting time now is practice versus, or like getting ready for airsoft in some way, training, and then playing. So,
and like,
it's,
I guess let's
the
be
time
real
is
here.
there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess let's be real here. Like, also 20 minutes of going for a jog a week is simultaneously nothing and will do a lot for your cardio over like a median period of time or a long period of time.
Yeah, and not to mention like your mental health, right? Because running is, like I say to people all the time, it's like it's hard to be, upset or like in your own head when you're literally dying because you're, yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I've never, like, I'm an anxious individual. I have never been anxious while I was busy dying on my run. Like, it's just, I don't have the capacity
when I was
for it.
doing a better job of making myself do that, it was definitely like oh man, I'm having a rough like mental health day. Time to go run up a hill for a while.
Yeah, legit though.
And
Yeah, there was a person.
Conveniently, we live in Newfoundland, so you can run uphill both ways.
There was a person I know at my old job who, when they took they had a really difficult conversation with someone or something like that, and they were upset, they would just go to the staircase, because we were in like a 7 or 8 story building, and they would just run it up and down the stairs a couple of times, and then they would come back and they'd be like, best kind, right, ready to go. It's like, one of my colleagues, and surprisingly, they didn't sweat, so that's fine. If that'd been me, I would have had to go home and change.
One of my colleagues runs at lunch every day.
Yeah.
Like every day. And like she's super fit, but it's also like I look at her, I'm like, I would,
how are you not sweaty?
I would be a mess. Like she comes back and she's like, I'm a model, and I'm like,
great. Yeah.
Like I if I did that, even when I was doing this a lot, it's like, oh, I'll just bring out my beard and go teach class.
Yeah.
Yummy.
All right. Next unpopular hot take. unpopular slash hot take. Gear efficiency is overrated with regards to skirmish games. My forte is CQB, and short of dressing up in a juggernaut suit, you'll have maximum fun even if your kit isn't efficient. If dressing up with the big plate carrier makes you feel badass, just wear it. There is no consequences in skirmish games after all.
I have two questions. One, was this Matt? And two, I agree. Like,
okay,
at a baseline, like, don't get me wrong. I think, if you're gonna go play a day of like the team deathmatch skirmishes we play, right? Like, if you just do that for 3 hours, I think that's like, I know there are people who find it get stale after a while, but like, I think once in a while that's a perfectly fine way to play a day of Airsoft. I think for the people who are doing like stuff at the indoor right now, because it's winter, that's probably most of what they're doing. Like, I can't imagine that space facilitates a lot more than team deathmatch. And like, yeah, at that point, you're doing personal skills stuff. Games reset really quickly. Getting shot has even less consequence than like in a 30-minute game. Yeah, Ben, if you want to wear a bright orange jumpsuit and a cat hat, go ahead.
I agree for other people, but I don't agree for myself. I think part of the thing that keeps me sort of entertained and that I enjoy about Airsoft is trying to be as efficient as possible for myself.
Totally. And like, I think,
yeah,
like my interpretation, at least, of what this is just, yeah, exactly. It should be, if you're not playing like for specific kinds of game mode, all gear is at least sort of functional, works okay, works fine, so make your own fun. Like, is how I take that, is just, wear a big old plate carrier and all the pouches, and, like, if you're, rocking like your 3-day pack and everything, okay, we're going to play a skirmish all day. Man, I mean, I guess more power to you, for you are way fitter than I am. And as long as you're having fun, great.
Yeah, and just talking to Johnny, I remember having a conversation with him when he was using his M4 and he didn't want to use his M4 anymore. And he's like, and I'm like, why? He's like, well, it's too easy, right? I want a new challenge. And I was like, that does not compute. Like, it's too easy because you're efficient with it and you're good with it. So like, carry on. Like, that's exactly what you want. But that's not what he wanted, right?
Yeah. And like, I definitely found that, and still find that, like, weird as a mentality.
Same.
But at the same time, if we're talking about efficiency, like, I have repeatedly purchased now 203s to slap onto guns for, like, even accepting that, like, we have good scenario stuff and that, like, the new shells are way cooler and I think way more effective. I'll let you know after a season of playing them. But I do have a lot of like positive feelings about that. I'm still solidly these are fun, not mechanically advantageous. Like, it is probably possible to pay to win in Airsoft to some extent. Not
sure those are that vehicle.
Yeah, they aren't.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, if you're getting into Airsoft with like 6 people and you're the only one who can afford to drop $4,000 on a HPA setup, you probably do have a mechanical advantage over the people who are buying like, a stock gun. But at the same time, I don't think it's an enormous advantage. And yeah, these are fun. They provide tactical tools. They're useful, but I don't think they're all of that.
And so when I read this comment, and they say, or this statement says, you'll have maximum fun even if your kit isn't efficient, and it will make you feel like a badass. Just wear it. I think if this individual is saying this to me, the answer would be, well, I don't agree with that for me.
I think you totally
because
do. I think
for
you totally
me,
do. I think what you rock does make you feel like a badass. I think the efficiency.
Actually, it does not. I was going to say, like,
Let me just take off my shoe for a second.
Well, no, it makes me feel competent, right? The kit that I have is efficient and I'm good at using it, or I will be when I get all my belt kit all situated. But like with my plate carrier, I feel extremely competent. I feel extremely confident in my own skills. And in that respect, I guess I kind of feel like a badass. What I was going to say is, I'm very long past the point of Airsoft kit making me feel like a badass. Like, oh my God, I'm a hard dude. Like, I don't feel that way with respect to my Airsoft kit anymore. It really is like the jersey you put on to go play a sport. Man. Like, it's the same stuff. But like my point of all this is to say, you know what? If other people feel that way, that is awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you feel like a badass wearing your plate carrier or whatever, that's great, and I'm so excited for
I,
you.
I'm
For
not gonna.
me,
I'm not gonna
not the
lie.
case.
Not gonna lie. The 249 does kind of make me feel like a
Well,
badass.
yeah. I mean, you know what? That's part of it. 240 Bravo, you'll probably be even more of a
Oh
badass, right?
god.
And I can definitely feel that way about you. Like, I can look at you rocking one of those huge LMGs, being like, Jesus Christ, boys, Pat's in the house. Look out, right? But you give it to me, and I'm just thinking about, okay, how is this working for me? Like, what do I need to do to be effective with this? Like, how am I going to apply this in
Oh yeah.
situation,
To be clear,
right?
it doesn't make me
Like,
feel like a badass while we're playing. While we're playing, it makes me feel like a magnet for BBs.
well,
Like while we're
yeah,
playing, it makes me feel like I have a giant shoot me sign. Now, having HPA'd it and gotten it working, now I feel like I also have a giant gun, so it's fine. But
yeah,
like, um, the the practicum there is sort of like, whatever. But yeah, like I don't feel like a badass when I'm playing games of airsoft because I'm usually not like thinking about how I look.
hmm,
It's the adage from kendo, right? Like if you're thinking about how badass you look, you're doing something wrong.
yeah,
You should be
totally.
thinking about what you're doing. Um, in between games, standing around with like an LMG, chatting with people, and just being like, yeah, look at this gigantic thing I'm carrying. I do feel like a bit of a badass at times, like.
Yeah. The next unpopular opinion is kind of tied into this one. My unpopular opinion is that is that a kit is a kit, no matter how expensive or rare or complex it is. A kit is a kit. Someone building a new kit may not have the same budget as the next person, but they might be just as excited that they can afford a new kit, no matter what it is.
Yeah, man. I mean, how often do we say we're not here to yuck anyone's yum? Like,
Yeah,
if a kid walks up to me and is like, "What do you think of my cool tactical vest?" My answer is high five, right? Like, you know, um, it is about them feeling cool, having fun, feeling like a badass, right?
yeah,
Whatever aspect of that they're into, or as many of them as they like to pick from. Um, so yeah, like, you know, uh, I if you're doing the like hardcore reenacting stuff, and I don't mean the airsoft version, I mean like, uh, the stuff that John is sort of adjacent to and into other than airsoft, like then people are like, oh, you have the wrong buckle on that, and even that stresses me out, man. Like,
yeah,
I mean, like, to pull from another hobby, right? Like, there are people who'll be like, oh man, you're playing your Warhammer game and you've painted your little spacemans wrong, right? Like, one of my friends, who only got into playing Warhammer because she was dating a guy who played Warhammer, right? But she had a pink Space Marine army, and I've literally seen dudes get mad because she painted her guy as pink, and it's just like,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
and you see this a lot online as well, like people just being just shitty to other people, being like, "Oh my god, that sucks," or "Why don't you get the real thing?" Or, we talked about it in the last episode, like buying a repro kit and then having guys who bought the real steel stuff because they have more budget or they just wanted to feel cool or whatever, then crapping on guys who, flexing on the pores, as the expression goes. And the reality is, like, it's just gatekeepy trash behavior for one thing. The second thing is that person is quite likely very excited about their kit, and they probably aren't jaded like me, and it does make them feel like a
man,
badass to
like,
have this. I remember feeling that way too. And so someone coming being like, oh well, that gear is not the right gear, or like you should have bought something better, or like, oh my god, is that like AliExpress? Like, why would you do that? Like, all that kind of stuff is just not positive behavior that we need in airsoft, and it's not the kind of stuff that, to be clear, we engage in or tolerate in our Discord either, right? Like,
yeah,
that's
and
not
like,
the kind of community was built,
and
right?
like you can definitely find all kinds of people on YouTube who are like, oh, I'm gonna just like roast these guys and their kid. And I mean, we have videos of us roasting people, but like the people on the
Voluntarily
yeah,
they
exactly.
signed up
We
for
asked
it.
if anyone would find that funny, and people were like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
And I mean, we've included pictures of our gear in there, right? So, um, I feel like as long as it's all in good fun, like it's rad. But yeah, kids come up and are like, oh man, check out my cool airsoft gun, and it's Lancer tactical like basic gun. And I'm like, that is cool as hell. Do you mind if I shoot some rounds?
yeah.
Why would I
I
do
think
anything
too.
else? Also, to be honest with you, it's cool. Like,
I think there's also, there's a place here with respect to people's gear, which is if they're asking you for your opinion, right? Or again, that's not open license to crap on them, but there's absolutely space to ask questions about, hey, well, why did you pick that up? Like, what do you think this is going to do for you? Why do you have it? Explain to me, like, why do you have it set up this way?
Yeah, and
Right? Like, walk me through it. And that's a different conversation than being like, you're poor, you should spend more money. Like, obviously,
and like
that's not
tons
helpful.
and tons of times we've, including with like people on our team, honestly, we've gone, and including like teammates with me, have gone like, why do you have that so loose? Like, just tug that. Yeah, there we go. Right. Um, which is constructive criticism. Like,
Yeah,
here's a
exactly.
way to make this work a little better if you're interested. And most people, if you frame it that way, are like, cool.
Yeah, I think the part that gets, often missed on constructive criticism is the constructive. Constructive means that they can build on that to improve. So if you're about to give constructive criticism to someone and really all you're doing is you're using constructive criticism to shield your shitty behavior, then that's not helpful. You need to think about, okay, if I tell this person this, what do I conceivably think that they're going to do with this information? Right.
Yeah.
And with a lot of beginners or people who are on limited budget, you tell them that the thing that they bought is not expensive enough. Well, guess what? They don't have the budget to go out and get the thing that you think arbitrarily they should have. And now they just feel shitty about themselves,
And
right?
like, and
Or
like
they
you,
think you're a dick, right? Either
like you
or.
can play
Maybe
that
both.
game with, with me if you want. Like, in the sense of looking at me like, you could spend more money. Yeah. Um, you know, that will always be true of every hobby thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to know how much money you can spend on like a rapier for HEMA rapier fencing?
I
How
don't
much you
think I
got?
do. I don't think I want to know,
Yeah, but the
actually.
answer is how much you got. In the same
Yeah.
way that's like, hey Pat, if I gave you $6,000, could you spend it all on one airsoft gun? Probably. I'm,
Probably a high kappa, I would say.
probably I'm crazy. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
like it's, I mean, like, shit. All right, Pat, spend 30 grand on airsoft. All right, I'll go buy a Humvee.
Yeah.
Like, I will go buy a surplus Humvee and put a 2.4 Bravo on it.
So yeah, guys, don't yuck people's yums. If you have kit that you enjoy it. If you're asking for feedback on it, just be open to constructive criticism, assuming it is provided to you in that frame.
But also, like, if you're a beginner or you're someone not a beginner and you're asking for feedback on your kit and people are going like oh, they're shitting on you, walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't need that.
So this next one, buckle up, guys, because this is spicy.
Oh no.
Personally, I really don't like Desert Night Camo, DNC, and Tiger Stripe. The looks just do not appeal to me whatsoever. Tiger Stripe, I mean, I can kind of see why people like it, but DNC is just completely impossible to see the appeal in. It's a good thing that I'm not a moderator on the Discord because this guy will probably be gone. This is crazy, right?
DNC is
Desert Night Camo. So it's the olive drab with the vertical, well, the cross hash marks and then the black circle dots on it. And the Tiger Stripe, it's
my
what Matt
illiteracy
wears.
is showing.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, like, I kind of see the very end comment of the last thing, like, we're not here to yuck your yum. Like, oh, I don't like these. Okay, don't buy it.
Okay, but just like every rule, there has to be an exception.
Phil, no, Pat, this is heresy.
I think, so obviously we're joking around. I think Pat's absolutely right. Like, different camo patterns will appeal to different people for a variety of different reasons. Some people look at Alpenflash and go, wow, that's rad. I assume those people are colorblind. However, it's possible that they're not.
We should ask one of our friends is colorblind. We should ask him like what he thinks.
It's like, what does this look like? It's like, is this U.S. woodland? Oh, now we understand. That's why. But no, like, there's tons of camo patterns out there, and they appeal to some people more than others for mystical reasons. Some people look at I mentioned Alpenflash, but they could look at like Stritch Tarn, right? Or you could look at Fleck Tarn or anything, and just be. I don't know why I picked like two German patterns back to back. Anyways,
I've seen people
regardless.
who like I've encountered people here who like really like and want a game like multicam urban.
Yeah.
And like, confession, I don't particularly like multicam urban. I
You
like
mean
all of,
the black stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I like all
Yeah,
of the
multi
other.
black.
I
Yeah.
like all of the other multicams. What you don't like?
No,
Whatever.
no. But see,
Um,
again, like this is the whole purpose of this,
but
right?
yeah,
Like it's like,
season to taste.
yeah,
I like most of my issue with the multicam black here is like you're playing in the woods, dude.
yeah,
Not gonna
yeah.
help.
I think just like it's just like anything. I think not Fleck, excuse me, Tiger Stripe has this like this retro vibe to it, and a DNC in a way does too, because it's from Gulf War One and all this kind
Yeah.
of stuff. I don't know where it exploded in popularity so much, probably thanks to YouTubers and whatnot. I don't really know, but bottom line, it's just olive drab, right? It's olive drab with vertical lines, and it when we did our camo test many years ago, it was effective here because spoiler alert, olive drab is effective here. It has no magical properties. It's really just like a flex type of camo, and I do think it's cool. But I can also appreciate people just being like, I
Yeah,
don't get it. It's like,
but it's also like joy to the fashion soft folks. Like
yeah,
if you are going, oh man, this is my favorite thing for fashion soft. Okay, sick. You know, if someone else is going, man, this is my favorite thing for fashion soft, and you don't agree with them, all right, that's fine. Don't like, if it's your friends, yeah, like troll them, but like,
yeah.
independent of that aspect, yeah, okay, whatevs.
Yeah, there's just so many different patterns, and like some people look at M90 and they're like, "Wow, it's great." Some people are like, "Oh, I hate it," and it's like that's cool.
The latter
right?
people are wrong.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinions. Like that's fine, right? Whether you don't like M90, you don't like Tiger Stripe. I mean, you can have your opinion.
But like, I mean, I'm also like, I still love the U.S. Woodland.
Yeah,
because
some people are basic.
Because 90s action, yes. I will go to Starbucks and I will get my caramel latte. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I am the hairiest, ugliest, basic white girl in the world.
So this next one is actually kind of spicy for real, and we did have a conversation about it on the Discord, and I think it's an interesting one. In general, minimum engagement distances, or MEDs, are stupid. Voluntary mercy rule is great. So in general, MEDs are stupid. Voluntary mercy rule is great.
So like, I'm gonna ask for clarification first. So by voluntary mercy rule, you mean if I go mercy, you go okay?
Yes, yeah, that's the way I took it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it's up to you to decide to go mercy, right? If you say mercy, the person has to take it, but it's up to you to decide when you apply it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that's probably fine as long as everyone has their shit together. The concern I have is like we have played forever really with both MEDs and a mercy rule, and I've seen a ton of people go, oh, I'm super hard, I'm never going to take a mercy. Great.
Yeah.
The MEDs are stupid. Do you play with adults? Is everyone you play with an adult? Because if that's the case, if everyone's a grown up and everyone agrees to it, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
In the same,
I think, yeah,
in the same way that like, how hard we're hitting in HEMA, how hard we're throwing you on the ground in martial arts stuff, whatever, is sort of a collective discretion thing, but it's not a collective discretion thing that's decided by the person who's willing to get hit the hardest, is sort of the key thing for me. If kids are playing, piss off.
yeah,
I'm like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are 14-year-olds who play Airsoft, 12-year-olds who play Airsoft who are like, I don't care if I have to extract this BB from my flesh. But like, I'm not here to inflict harm on people. And
yeah. There's a lot to unpack with this in particular. I think a couple of different things. So firstly, people are absolute trash at estimating distances, right? So very often, whether or not you have an MED, players are still going to get shot within that MED because they misjudge that distance, right? Generally not to their disadvantage, let's call it,
yeah.
right? So it's kind of like you have a rule in place, but it only really gets applied voluntarily, and when it does get applied, it doesn't get applied consistently. So that's one part of the unpacking.
I think
The other part,
that's a legitimate problem. I'll totally
yeah,
concede that that's a wholly
I
legitimate issue.
I would also say like there are absolutely some cases where the replica has an energy limit or an energy potential that's so high that you absolutely need to put some sort of safety rule in place before allowing that replica to come onto the field. So if you're using a bolt action sniper rifle that's shooting 2.5 joules, you absolutely need to have some sort of minimum engagement distance. But again, like unless you're testing people on their visual distance estimation skills, it's not necessarily that it's not necessary that it's going to be applied consistently. So that's another thing. And then finally, another thing that was brought up when we had this conversation on Discord is why do energy limits have to be so high in the first place? Right? So if you really feel that MEDs are stupid, which you can have that opinion, well, why would you just not set your energy limits on at the field where no one needs an MED? So for example, just have a hard limit to 1 joule,
Sure.
right? Rifleman, 1 joule.
So
Or 1.2 joules or something, and there's no minimum engagement because it's not required at that energy output.
and like the answer to that piece is sort of I mean honestly the answer to all of this is sort of it as a community, any given group of airsofters is going to decide their rules.
Mm-hmm.
um the 1 joule thing, like frankly, if you're running a CQB field, that's probably fine. Like I don't need to get zipped at 1.5 joules from 4 feet away in a CQB environment, really. Like I'm not gonna stress about it that much.
Yeah.
But I don't need to take a nice double tap to the face at that distance and have to clean that up after. It's not my preference.
Yeah.
It's
I think
happened, whatevs. But
my sort of thought on this is I actually agree that MEDs are stupid. However, I think they are a necessary stupid given the context of the way airsoft is played, and especially at our field with the energy limits that we have. I would not feel comfortable having those energy limits with nothing else in place, even if people aren't going to apply them as diligently as they can. It's stupid. I wish they didn't have to be used, but if we are going to allow those energy limits, you have to have some other form of safety mechanism in place to try, at the very least, right? Even if it's perfunctory, try to provide some sort of like additional layer of safety for players, especially when you consider where we play at frontline with the kids who play. Like it's a complete non-starter to not have. Like I don't want a kid getting hit by a 2 joule BB at like 30 feet away. Like that's there's no need for that, right?
I'm like, I don't, I also don't think, even if people are getting them wrong, even accepting that people often don't really know what a 50-foot MED is, right?
Yeah.
Because I've played a lot of games with people who think a 50-foot MED is actually 20 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
I would love to just say, in addition to so you chrono your replica and you're like, oh, it's a bolt action. It's 2 joules something. It's like, okay, how far is that thing over there? And they go, I don't know, like 30 feet, and it's like 20 feet away. You go, okay, try again. How far away is that thing over there? And you know how far these things are. And they get the distance wrong both times, and it's within their MED. No, sorry, you can't take the field. We gave you 2 chances or 3 chances or whatever. You failed the eye test, pick another replica. Or turn your replica down to, no MED levels, right?
I don't think that's a terrible idea, to be honest with you.
Very hard to implement. But yeah.
I mean, totally. But like, this is a lot of why I have run my M27 on just what Frontline uses for normal rifleman FPS for ages, because like I can dial it up to be DMR muzzle velocities with like the tiny little turn of a hex key. I can semi-lock it with 3 button presses. Okay, done. Now it's DMR. Cool. But I mostly don't feel the need to, like, in terms of the gameplay benefit. Is like, oh yeah, you definitely outrange people, sure, but uh, and like to be honest with you, in a lot of ways, because like, yeah, okay, so 50 feet MED, all right, um, that's not actually that far. Like that's very workable in a game. Um, but I just don't want to deal with like screwing it up, right?
Yeah.
In just a like, so I've done a lot of ready ups, you know. Um, a couple of years ago, actually Matt's brother popped out to shoot me um, while I was running the LMG still on battery,
Hmm.
and that thing's super loud. Like when it was on battery, very loud gun, and it was right next to my face. And he popped out and said "bang bang," and I didn't hear him, and I shot him. And like then I processed what right, like,
Right.
and it's like, oh, yep, okay. I'm not saying that I screw that sort of thing up often. I'm saying I'd feel bad about screwing it up once.
Yeah.
I still feel bad about screwing that up, right?
And then you throw
So
MED into the mix, and it's like it's even
yeah, and like
it gets that matter gets compounded.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like when I was running like that version of the LMG had a really low muzzle velocity because it was jank, you know.
Mhm.
Right now I'm running it at sort of rifleman, unless anyone tells me to lower it, like, which, you know, sure, no problem. But yeah, you know, it comes down to like, obviously this is a sport where you're going to get an amount of pain inflicted on you. But like, if you're here to hurt people or you're here to inflict an egregious amount,
Yeah.
then, you know, that's kind of garbage. And like, I don't think the MED is a perfect solution, but the dude who was shooting me from 20 feet away thinking it was 50 feet was still staying 20 feet away from me because he thought he was applying the rule properly. And that's still way better than eating, you know, 1.7 joules from 10 feet away.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's imperfect, don't get me wrong. I would like a better solution, but laser range finding optics are expensive. Right, like,
I really wish, we could just reduce the velocity limits at frontline. That would be my ultimate wish. I think if we had our like rifleman limits sent to 1.2, 1.3 joules, something like that. We had our DMR and our LMG rules to like 1.5, 1.6 joules.
the LMG
Uh,
certainly doesn't need to be higher than the rifleman, like, really.
well, actually, I was talking about this with Jordan, and I do think it does in certain cases because if your LMG is full auto and all the other guns are full auto, what's the advantage of an LMG?
I mean, fair
Well,
enough.
actually, if it's more powerful, then it provides more range, provides more suppression. It makes it more effective.
Yeah, okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah, and I thought it was a pretty strong argument.
You know,
And because I was the same way, I was like, oh well, LMG should be the other way. It's like no, for the LMG to be effective, it has to have something different. So, and
yeah,
then you set your LMG still within no MED, right? And like you put it at 1.6, your DMR at 1.6, your other stuff at 1.2, and the only thing that has an MED after that is your bolt action sniper rifle,
and like that,
right?
and that's really easy.
I would love that,
And that's
but
really easy to manage and police. And like, you know,
that's never going to happen.
to
But
be
yeah.
clear, like, I have no problem with that idea. I think, to be honest with you, a lot of the resistance to MEDs or to joule adjustment stuff in Airsoft is like, there are just a lot of people who care more about the extra reach than they do about the drawbacks. And like, in fairness, if you're playing on a really huge field regularly, like if the field you're playing on is normally much larger than the one we play on, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Mhm.
On a field the size of a postage stamp, which really, like, Frontline's not that big,
Yeah.
I think we could very, very feasibly use those joule limits. Unlike,
Yeah, I agree.
you know, I don't think it would disadvantage any group of players or advantage any group of players more than what we're currently doing. I think the biggest drawback there, and I think practically this is probably one of the biggest arguments, is just that the FPS limits were probably set based on stock guns.
No, they were based on what we did at Redcliffe. Actually, we
Huh.
just transposed everything over. Yeah.
Which we did because we didn't have, we didn't want to seem to be or be inflicting a whole lot of control on what people were doing, right?
Mhm.
Like, in a sort of, any more FPS than any more muzzle velocity than this would suck. Don't do it.
Yeah, exactly
Um,
right.
and like, you know, I mean, it's a thing we could talk to people about here. I feel like the answer from some people is going to be, well, no. And especially like genuinely viably a like, if there are people who are like, well, my stock gun shoots this, so like I don't really want to have to pay someone to downgrade it to facilitate these field rules. I can understand where that person would be
Yeah,
coming from.
yeah, and
Um,
that's where my thinking was like that's why I said it's a non-starter, because all the replicas that they sell are probably higher than 1.2 joules. So, anyways, regardless, I think it's a bit of a pipe dream, but
yeah, I'm
yeah,
cool to talk
MEDs
about
are
though.
stupid, but at the same time, they're that necessary evil, right? Seatbelts are stupid too, but you got to wear them. So that's it. Um, Next one for you. The vast majority of real firearm and military skills are either useless or detrimental to airsoft. Taking them uncritically makes you a worse player than the hoodie wearing rental.
I mean,
Shout outs to my hoodie wearing rentals out
yeah,
there.
man. But like also, yeah, like there's a little bit of hate at the end, but like, um, yes, in
Mhm.
the sense that I think taking like our videos, right? I genuinely believe that like we've put up a bunch of content on YouTube, and a bunch of content through this platform as well. I guess this is on YouTube, but like through podcasting, where we talk about various ways to play airsoft and various things you can do to be better at that. And if you take what we are saying and don't think critically and don't try to apply it like practically to your airsoft, yeah, it's bad advice, probably. Like, um, you
Yeah.
know, in the same way that yeah, like to use an example that I know, right? If you're doing speed reload stuff with real steel, you don't care if your mag hits anything, right? Like the super IPSC competition shooter guys, if you put them on a like plank with water on both sides, they will still throw the mag down as fast as they are going to without any concern for where it goes. Fair enough. I don't want to lose my $80 mag from my
Yeah,
pistol. Like,
absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
um, and like, I guess there's a hypothetical world of competitive airsoft where I, to be honest, wouldn't be playing at that level, but like a hypothetical world of like, yeah, world class competitive airsoft where there was money on the line, where that might start to change for people in like a way that makes sense to my brain. But even at like, a milsim game that I've paid a bunch of money to travel to, like, yeah, I'm going to reload my stuff in a way that allows me to maintain my gear.
Yeah.
And, I can watch as many videos as you like about how to reload my pistol properly. Nope.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we spent historically, I mean, we've been playing for so long. Like, I remember watching hours and hours and hours of the old Magpul Dynamics Art of the Tactical Carabine videos, looking at all the different drills that they were doing, whether they were like single handed, like offhanded, single handed drills, like simulating like they got shot in the arm and they have to reload with their other hand, looking at all these cool drills, be like, man, those are so cool. And realizing that, like, there is no scenario in airsoft realistically where that's going to be important, or doing like clearing weapon malfunction drills. Like, of course we don't use weapons, we use replicas, and the replicas don't jam the same way that they do. Even if they did jam, they don't
yeah.
jam the same way they do in real
When
life,
your airsoft
right?
replica jams, you will not be clearing it that way.
And it's also true when you look at military tactics and doctrine manuals, where I remember we probably still have a very expensive copy of like small unit
Yeah,
tactics, a NATO
it
handbook or
is
whatever,
upstairs on my
right?
bookshelf. And like,
So much of that is, it's interesting to read, but you're never going to execute that on the airsoft field. What are you going to call in like your joint task force command and be like, yeah, okay, well, we're going to do an armor push here. It's like, no, you're not doing any of that stuff. Even we've talked about this in a past episode not too long ago, like at American Milsim, we were like, okay, well, we're going to put these squads in blocking positions, and we held those positions for 2.5 hours, and then we left, and then they put another squad in to do the same thing, and they just left and did other shit, and the line fell apart, because that doesn't work in airsoft, right? You have to understand the context. And I think what you said at the start is extremely salient. Like, if you're taking any advice uncritically, well, that's not a good thing. Like, you're not helping yourself, because that advice is probably general and not specifically tailored to your situation. Even if it is airsoft advice, like you said, like, does this apply to you or does this not apply to you? And
and like,
if, what is the intent of that advice, right?
and like if we look at, you know, just the example you used a minute ago, right? Of like, okay, so you guys held this spot, and then they cycled you out to give you guys some rest and send you to do other stuff or whatever, and the next guy's just sort of pieced. Yeah. Because like if you're looking at that training manual, right? Like there have been points where like we applied some of the really small scale like 10-man squad stuff usefully because we had 10 people who were here to engage together in the same mindset. But like going, yeah, I expect military, even at a milsim game, I expect military professionalism like from airsofters is like, well, we ain't.
And airsofters also don't react the same way that humans react in combat situations, I expect.
Totally.
Because you are probably not afraid of getting killed.
Yeah.
Because
I,
the
I,
likelihood of you being killed on the airsoft field is, I mean, not zero, certainly, but very,
I,
very, very slim.
I'm comfortable saying that like the most likely ways for me to die while playing airsoft are like falling out of a tree.
Or like cardiac arrest,
Yeah,
like,
well, I
or
mean,
having an aneurysm,
yeah,
right?
like the ones that are equally likely right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know. but but yeah, like I don't think that, you know, I mean, bluntly, this is what I teach for a living, right? Like both all of the courses I teach are if you take information in and don't think about it critically, you are making an error.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I believe fully that that applies to airsoft as well.
So speaking of thinking critically, let's hear this critical hot take now.
Oh no.
If I see a player on a skirmish field with a hydration pack, I automatically assume they don't know what they're doing.
Wow.
So first off, I automatically assume they're a hydro homie because hydrate or dihydrate, bro.
Hail hydrate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, okay, that's cool, man. I don't wear one a lot of the time because I just carry like 3 or 4 2-liter water jugs to airsoft.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's not a like, oh, you know, I'm trying to simulate, you know, the Desert Storm kit or whatever. That is, I am a big sweaty mess, and being able to consume more water makes me feel better.
Yeah.
You know, and you can look at me and go, oh, like, you know, that's not the science of it. Okay.
It's interesting though, because I kind of agree with the sentiment in a way. Like sometimes you show up to a game and you look at someone and the way that they're dressed and you're like, I don't think this person understood the assignment, right? They probably don't know firstly what they're getting into, right? You don't know what this is, or they've made the concrete decision to, this is what I'm kind of what we're talking about before, like this is what I'm going to wear because it makes me feel great and that's what I'm going to do. And I think with the hydration pack, you know, if you are the kind of person who gets, you know, a little bit of extra comfort by having water on you at all times, well, great. But I can see sort of that sort of like you having that question, be like, what is this person doing? Like, do they understand
Sure.
what we're about to undertake? And the very real answer could be no, they don't. That doesn't mean they don't know what they're doing. They might just not know the circumstances of what they're about to embark on.
But I mean, like, also to reference, you know, literally the previous question, I'm positive I can go find you YouTube videos where you're like, yeah, if you're going to go play airsoft, you need to make sure you have hydration, hydrate,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, the few days a year where we play and it's like 35, 36 degrees, I do want to hydrate.
Yeah.
Like, because otherwise I'm going to take one of those unfortunate involuntary naps.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the idea is like, well, it's just a skirmish game, just keep it in your fob bag. Cool, yeah. But you can also just carry it on your person, right? And it's like, well, the water's going to slow you down. I mean, okay, so it's a 1.5 liters of water on your back, so you're carrying 1.5 kilos, right? Like what is that? 3.3 pounds. I mean, yeah, it's you know going to slow you down a little bit, but like it's a skirmish, like you're not going to be fatigued from the extra 3.5 pounds. So it's a choice. I don't necessarily think they don't know what they're doing, but it's just like anything. Like it's eyebrow raising if it's your usual and you see something out of the ordinary to go,
Oh yeah, fair. But
yeah,
like,
I wouldn't say they don't know.
I also know people who carry a hydration pack when they're playing airsoft because it's just, you know, it's part of their kit. They've been using it forever, and it's like,
well, that's true. Yeah.
You know, why do you have that? Water.
Or it's easy.
You know, couldn't you keep water in the fob? Yeah, but this way I have it with me when I want to have a drink.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, for the amount of weight cost, you know, over a skirmish. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we got 2 more to get through here. So this will probably make the content creators angry, but they don't call it a hot take for nothing. GoPros, scope cams, etc. have no place in most friendly weekend warrior skirmishes or pickup games. A lot of people just play differently when they're trying to get footage for their OMG Uber kill cam compilations.
So, like, I can't speak to that. Most of the people here who've run GoPro stuff have been like pretty chill. Um, you know, we've had people go, oh yeah, like I'm running a GoPro so that I can review the game footage after, in that sort of like, yeah, like, you know, review the football match recordings kind of way. All right, cool. Like that's not how I prefer to do after action sort of chatting about Airsoft, but like if it works for you, cool. You know, a bunch of our, like Phil always runs one pretty much. A bunch of our guys have also run them, just like, you know, I don't know if it's because Phil's been like, hey, run one, or because they were like, hey, can I run one, or whatever. But, and I definitely don't think it's affected their play. But I mean, we've also intentionally selected our teammates for people who are chill, like for people who want to play Airsoft and have fun, and like who bluntly, I don't think putting a camera on them would make them play differently. You know, are there people who are like, yeah, you know, I really want to get my YouTuber footage out of it? Probably. You know, are there people who are more likely to play differently because of that? I would believe it. It's just not an issue we faced.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that. I haven't seen a whole lot of other people, especially acting shitty because they're wearing a GoPro because they want to get sort of the footage that they want. But, you know, we don't play. There are no big significant YouTubers who show up at our field, right? And I mean, I'm not putting myself in that category because it's, you know, that's not where we're at. But regardless, like we don't have, you know, Desert Fox or, you know, Gun Gamers or whomever coming out like to our fields. And so we're not bumping elbows with people who are using the GoPros in that way. Now, that being said, it absolutely changes or can change your mindset when you have that camera on. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's absolutely something that I contend with. Like when I'm wearing my GoPro, I am conscious of, okay, like how is this going to, like, is this going to make a good video? Right? Am I going to be able to use this for video? Is this going to be interesting? Or like, am I showing up the best that I can right now? Or if I were to look back at this in the future, would I cringe? Would I be embarrassed to have that footage of me on the internet? And in some cases, the reloads are really bad. And I'm like, oh my God, nobody can ever see this. But like, it's absolutely something that you are conscious of, and it's not everyone is necessarily like that. We did one village defense game many years ago where I had like 3 GoPros running, and Cal has one on his head, and I think he is playing exactly the same way that he plays any game that he plays Airsoft. But it absolutely can put you in a different mindset, and different people will respond to that in different ways, right?
I mean, totally. I find it funny because, like, really, what you just said is you want to keep your play as impeccable as possible, and your performance as like above board and like, you know, irreproachable as possible in terms of your conduct. So like you're actually going, I want to be on my best performance and best behavior, which I think is sort of the opposite of the concern being raised there.
Yeah, for sure. Because people are like, well, the way for me to get clicks on my videos is to show like I played one game against 45 people and I took them all out. And then you go out there and you just do whatever you need to do to make that happen, including shrugging hits, etc. Right?
I feel like a lot of that content, and like maybe I'm wrong here, I feel like most of that's got to be staged. Like I feel like it's got to be people just being like, yeah, either I've spliced this together to make me look super cool, or
definitely.
Like,
yeah. It's not impossible. I'm sure it can happen. But, you know, you're not wrong. And again, it's all about, for some people, putting the camera on is all about how am I going to sort of maximize the content that I can get out of this to make myself look the best, to get the most engagement and so on. And it's a tricky game because it's very tempting, right? It's very tempting to be able to go, okay, well, what do I think the algorithm is going to reward? And I'm going to go ahead and do that so I can, you know, make my $25 or whatever it's going to be in ad revenue. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like if you're one of the people who's like, you know, making money at this, making a living ish way. I think there are only a couple, but like, yeah, that's certainly going to change how you approach airsoft, because it's gone from being a thing you're doing for fun as a hobby to being a thing you're doing for a living, you know?
Yeah. I do think, one of the things that was said here is, these GoPros that have no place in most friendly weekend warrior skirmishes or pickup games. And I think, again, it's all about the intent, because there is a place. And I think the place is actually recording the cool stuff that you and your community are doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is a place there to make and capture these memories, especially when you're talking about like fun moments, cool moments that other people are a part of, that you can then celebrate with them.
Yeah, man.
And I don't think necessarily people think about that a whole lot, or you think about it during the context of like really big games, but lots of really fun stuff has happened just randomly during skirmishes and stuff. And if you have it wearing a camera and you capture it, well, actually that's
Like
pretty funny.
the video
right?
we have of, I think it's Mark tossing you a mag from like
Mario,
Mario
yeah.
tossing you a mag from like 20 feet away, and you somehow miraculously actually catching it and then going on, is like, that makes me smile, man. It's,
Yeah, or Knife Kid, like
yeah,
like
totally.
just
Right.
yeah.
I think it would be hilarious if I had a picture, like a video of the one time I killed Snowgirl with a sword. Like, like, because that's dumb as hell.
Yeah.
Right. I think that, yeah, this feels sort of like going like, well, I don't want cameras at, the party, because it'll detract from people enjoying the party. It doesn't have to. I have a ton of photographer friends. Hi. Right.
Yeah.
And like, they definitely go to parties, take pictures, and like, it does not take them out of the event. Right. But like, one of our friends took a ton of pictures. Two of our friends really took a ton. They shared a camera, took a ton of pictures at my 40th. And like, I'm super glad to have those right now. And in 20 years, I'm probably going to be even more glad to have them.
Assuming you don't die from the aforementioned aneurysm or heart failure.
Look, we both know that I'm going to implode in some way, like just. But like the improbable ways I intend to die, notwithstanding. Yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like you're putting this in a situation of like, yeah, I don't want this here because of behavior of players, and I think the better way to address it would be to go, hey, like, insert player here. When you are rocking the GoPro, you appear to be trying to do this sort of stuff. Are you aware that you're not being chill? Right? Like,
and like, I hate to break it to you, but if the dude is a really nice guy when he's not wearing the GoPro, and he's a complete dick when he wears the GoPro, he's actually not a really nice guy. He's just a dick. If he's shrugging hits with the GoPro on, I can basically guarantee you he's shrugging hits with the GoPro off too. Yeah. Right? That thing is not changing that behavior. It's just giving them the license to just do it with impunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a GoPro problem. I think it's an individual problem.
Yeah, and I do tend to feel like those issues sort themselves out over not that long, in my experience. Although that may partly be because when I have too many of those issues, I go, hey, you need to sort this issue out.
Yeah. All right. Our last one. Matching camo head to toe is whack. Well, that's enough time for us. We'll see you next time. Matching camo head to toe is whack.
I mean, I've done it a bunch. I am content to. I am content to not. I don't have a horse in this race, in the sense that, like, I think I'd rather wear like OD pants and a camo green top, or like woodland pants and an OD top, than wear, coyote brown pants and a camo green top. I kind of want some matching there, I guess, but beyond that, it's like, yeah, I like both. Both is fine.
I think it kind of depends on the camo too. Like, if I see a guy roll up to our like open game and they're head to toe multicam, like everything, like boots, knee pads, like plate carrier, like I'm just like, bro, what? Like,
that's a lot of multicam.
It's a lot of multicam, and I'm just like, meh, this looks like whatever, or it's it's like, it's very basic or what have you. But like, if you see someone show up to a game and they're wearing like DCU pants, but they're wearing like an M81 top, and then they've just got a randomly scrimmed lid, and their guns painted different color. It's like, that guy's not afraid of
I think you
anything,
just described
right?
John. Like,
Yeah, like I think obviously, like we said before, like we're not here to yuck anybody's yum. Like it's all about what you want to do for sure. But at the same time, like we've seen like full Flectarn outfits that look amazing because, well, spoiler alert, Flectarn looks great.
Yeah.
Right. If you showed me a person dressed head to toe in M90, I'd be like, yeah, that dude knows what's going on. But then other patterns, you're like, why? Right. And CADPAD, I feel, is kind of the same way. Although I've said that, and I'm actually going to walk it back. You know what? Like the only way to wear CADPAD is full. Like you have to wear trousers, shirt, and boonie. If you do, or like not boonie, but you know what I mean, like headgear, right?
Yep.
That's the only way to wear CADPAD. You
relish,
can't mix and match.
The relish must be complete.
Yeah, you can't mix and match. I don't think it looks very good. But like DCU bottoms or tops mixed with like an M81 or DNC. Shout out to those of you who hate DNC, but like mixing and matching that kind of stuff can I think look really, really cool, really,
Totally.
and it can be very effective too. If you think about the concept of camouflage, where I forget what the actual name for this is, but we know that stuff tends to be lighter on top and darker on bottom because of the way light hits it. So oftentimes with camo, you reverse that. And so now you're wearing light bottoms with a dark top. Like that actually is helpful to you potentially depending on your environment, right?
Fair point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
I will joke just because you said at the beginning of sort of this question, that you feel that the multicam boots to top is a little bit basic. So I'll ask that guy for my Starbucks order, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I have to skip the dishes again.
Yeah. It's also, I think, as a side note, just for Airsoft in particular, when we think about camo, what is whack is when you have multiple different camo. The same camo from multiple different sources, and they're not identical, because that happens a lot with reproduction gear. Multicam from one place is not going to be the same as multicam from another place, or M81 or whatever. When you have those camo patterns that are the same but also different, like you have multicam that's like more pink than, anyways, whatever. That can be a little whack. But I mean, at the end of the day, whatever floats your boat, man. If you enjoy wearing your head to toe camo, then great. But
yeah, I mean, like I honestly, it's very much a pick by mood thing for me.
Yeah. That being said, I don't think I'm ever going to wear full camo head to toe ever again. Like, I don't think that's going to be a thing for me. Cause also, like, I just have certain pieces of my kit that are very comfortable. Like my OD pants are phenomenal, and I got them specifically so I could wear whatever color top I wanted on top. So
yeah. And I mean, we're very much, like, and I think with each passing game, ever more so, comfort is king. Airsofters, like, how am I most effective? When I am comfy and putting BBs downrange. That's how I am most effective.
So that's it for the hot takes, secret squirrel opinions, and other confessions that people want to share on the Discord. Hopefully, you found this entertaining. These kinds of conversations occasionally spark on the Discord, and if that's something that's interesting to you, I mean, that's the best place to connect with us and have these chats live when they happen, and then you can just continue to hear about them after the fact on the podcast as we pick some stuff out of there and have some conversations.
And thanks for this one. This was a very chill, like, super fun chat. Phil and I very obviously had a lot of laughs with this. So 10 out of 10, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thanks so much for listening, guys. That's all we have for you this week. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a great week.
Take care.